see what he has put here for us to be at peace with. And so that's a short Thanksgiving, because there is so much left out. And it's also left out again to put it into English. We leave a lot more too, but the Thanksgiving, what we call this Ganohanyo, it's sometimes referred to as the words before all else. Sometimes it can go for an hour and a half, depending on the speaker, whether it's a ceremony or meeting. Sometimes meeting times we cut it short and condense things without acknowledging each and every one, but in our minds we know what we're thankful for and how to direct our thoughts that way. And so there was a time that we weren't all grateful for things, and we forgot some of our ways. And the peacemaker brought a message to our people to remind us. And in that message it was to stop the bloodshed amongst each other. Because at that time we weren't acknowledging what we just put our minds together as one and just did. We were just carrying on throughout the forest and running about. And we were fighting each other. And we were good at it. And so we felt that it was our responsibility to do that as to entertain the Creator. So we continued to do that. And then it wasn't. It was making him sad. It was making the Creator sad, so he sent a messenger down to us, delivered this message of unity, strength, respect, love, and peace, and honor. And so it took a long time for us to accept that message. It's hard to change people's ways, especially when they're good at it. And so this belt that I'm about to bring out and show you is, oh, that's good. Hiawatha belt, you know it as Confederacy belt, Unity belt, Five Nation Confederacy belt, Haudenosaunee. You guys all recognize the symbol? Kind of new, like maybe in 1980s or something. Well, we have the original belt. The original belt is over 1,000 years old. Dates back to around 1158, somewhere around there. We have the original at Onondaga. Here's a copy of one that we show around to people, and how you know it as it became very familiar. It was during international games of lacrosse, because part of that message to entertain the Creator was not by bloodshed, and to use your strength and abilities and agilities in this game of lacrosse for the men. It was the men who was at war. So sometimes you can hear the game of lacrosse referred to as war's younger brother, because they put it in there and they worked so hard at that game. And so we're traveling across the ocean there, playing international lacrosse in the World Games, and people were asking, "You're the Haudenosaunee, you're the Six Nations, well, where's your flag?" So we don't have a flag. We never had a flag. We know who we are. We don't need a flag. Well, that's good, fine and dandy, but the rest of the world don't know who you are, and everybody else is recognized by their flag. And so the minds got together. I wonder, what are we going to make for a flag? What are we going to do? We had no idea. Had a lot of real good ideas, but nobody could come to one mind as to what it's going to be, because they're all good ideas. And one person spoke up and said, "We got a flag. It's in the beadwork. It's like our great law of peace. It's all in there. So if they want to know who we are, we'll show them who we are." And so that became our flag. And it is today recognized as our flag. And so inside this great law of peace is good 8, sometimes 10 days of explaining what's in here. And so we don't have 8 or 10 days tonight. So again, you're gonna get the condensed version. And so it's hard to condense it, but because you always leave something out. And when you get done, you think, well, I should have put this point in there too. This would be helpful. It's all going to be helpful. And so this represents the Haudenosaunee from the east is the Mohawk, right close to this area that we're in today. A little bit inside is the Oneidas. The Onondagas is the capital of the Haudenosaunee, the Cayugas, and the Senecas. Senecas are the keepers of the western door, united as one. Each one has their own fire, just like each one of us in this room, each individual, we have our own fire. And we know that's our job to protect that fire, because we all know what happens if we don't, when that fire goes out. And so inside the great law of peace, it's talked about that, your defense or your fire. Each nation has their own decision making. Anything that comes in that is only going to affect the Mohawk, then it's their business. Same with the Oneida, same with the Onondaga, Cayuga, and Seneca. But if something comes into the Mohawks that may affect the Onondaga or the Oneida, it becomes Grand Council business. And all nations are summoned to a meeting at Onondaga to hear and discuss the matters at hand that come in. And our decisions that we make are made not just for that immediate what's coming into somebody's territory or disrupting their fire. The decisions that are made for 7 generations to come and more. It doesn't really say the number 7 other than the face is yet to come. Hadigum sadundies. Hatagan. Iti soda. Sagawihunda. Goyo dihadie. It becomes our grandmother's job to look out for the next generations to come. It's ours to make a decision that will not negatively affect them when they get here. Our decisions won't have a negative effect on the future generations to come. That's what the Grand Council's job is. It's one of their jobs. But inside this, we talk about the unity. Peacemaker give us this message, and he says, take one arrow from each fire, each nation. And that arrow is going to represent your livelihood of food source and your protection, your defense. So we'll use an arrow. We'll take one from each. And he set him out there and he explained, you take one arrow, any man can snap that in half. Snap it right in half. You take 5 arrows and you bind them together with the leader of the forest, of the animals, Sinu, the deer. Skenadu is the leader. Guguwanane Skenadu. Kahuduni. Like I mentioned earlier, we all have leaders. The birds is the eagle. The strawberry is for the fruits. The 3 sisters is for the corn, beans, and squashes for the foods. We go on, and it's all in here. And so you take all of that, peace, love, respect, honor, all these fancy English words, and you bind that with the sinew, and you wrap it around those 5 arrows tight as the law of peace. The great law of peace. No man can break that bundle. That cannot be broken. But we can untwine it ourselves as people. So you hear about this law made by the people, for the people. It's already in here. We shared it with the newcomers in the forest, asking for suggestion, help, survival skills, and all of that. And we shared it. We put our hand out and said, yeah, this is how we live in the forest. And so on top of this great tree of peace that we have planted, what was planted by the peacemaker here at Onondaga, before the roots took ground, all the weapons of war were cast underneath it. Put underneath so the waters can turn it back to soil, all the weapons of war. And the directions that the roots travel are all around the white roots of peace, it's called. And anybody's welcome to follow them roots of peace to the great tree for protection under the great law of peace, as long as they abide by it. On top of that tree is perched an eagle, which has great vision. You can see for long distance, and it will screech out or cry if danger's coming. Eagle's been screeching out for quite a while now. We've been paying attention to it, but we've been paying attention to it as a hurt people, because we've been under attack, and we're part of this whole campaign is to heal Mother Earth and all that's put here. We aren't going anywhere. We're still here. We realized that your ancestors, when they arrived and asking for help in the forest, we came to the realization that you guys ain't going anywhere either. So in order to live in the forest, there's laws you have to abide by. And so we shared the great law with your people, and we came to the understanding that there's more involved. And so we came up with an agreement with your people. And in that agreement is, these are called gaswenta. You can look at this one sometimes in here, it's gaswenta. Which one is it?
Did you bring it?
The two-row. The two-row wampum represents the Onkwehoe. I don't know what's politically correct. Native Americans, Indians, or I don't know. What did you guys find most fitting and best for us to be called?
First people.
Well, here it is in one canoe. And then in the vessel is your people, your ancestors. In this agreement, we talk about traveling down the river of life, side by side, through the river of life. Not crossing paths as far as to say your laws are in your boat, your songs, your dances, your religions are all in your boat. And our canoe is ours, our songs and our dances. And it came across to the Mohawk. And they said that we should have this agreement. And we'll tie your ship to the forest. But there's other people involved that have to be considered, because we already have agreements with our neighbors. And so we're all involved here. There's many nations that followed the protection of the great law of peace and the unity of it, right here, right in this area. Way before the white man came. And so in this agreement that we come up with, we noticed that the Mohawks had acknowledged that we tied their ship to the trees, but maybe this should be tied in further to the rock. And they were talking about the Oneidas. people of the standing stone. And so they said because of the great importance that we're noticing as these people aren't going away, that it should be brought to the hills. Onondaga Nation, the people of the Onondaga, the people of the hills. And so Grand Council, and that's what I say about the Grand Council, now it affects all the other nations, that these people are going to stay in the forest. So it becomes Grand Council issue. And so all of Cayuga and Seneca are there too, to acknowledge all of this. And so, in order to live and survive in the forest, you must understand, first, your mother, who provides for you. Your Mother Earth. It's all in there. It's all in here. And we shared it in 1613 so that everybody understands you're going to stay in the forest. These are the laws you got to go by to keep it a balance. These English words seem to be cutting it short again. Because it does. The real is in the forest. All of you have been in the forest before. You've been in the waters. You understand it. I went to God, David. Not again, Udidake, kahudunyu, na o neoneganos. The greatness of feeling that you receive from that. The great value of feeling is now transcribed into value of money. And you can't eat that and you can't drink that. So we got to understand you're not at peace if your belly's full of dollar bills. And the Great Law of Peace talks about it by acknowledging each and every that was planted here for us to be at peace in the Ganohanyo. And so it's not a matter of history. It's a matter of life. We're still here. You guys are still here. So this agreement is still in effect. Because it was understood at this time, they said that that rope might rot from where you anchored it to. So we should use a chain. And I don't know how many of you ever heard the term covenant chain? It's the three links: peace, friendship, and forever. It's the three in between, and the purity of what was put here for us to survive on our Mother Earth. They didn't understand forever. Well, they had it written down, and our people told them that one drop of rain, and you won't understand that paper tomorrow. And they didn't. And so we put it on a belt in Wampum, and this is still alive. Because we said we understand it as this agreement is going to last as long as the sun shines from the east, sets in the west, for as long as the grass grows green, and for as long as the waters flow downhill. That, in our minds, as one, means forever. I don't know how many of you guys noticed, but I noticed the sun up this morning. Come from the east, set in the west. It's still happening, still alive. Grass is still green, except for the brown spots, the brown fields, I guess they're called. But the grass is still green, and the water's still flowing downhill. And so this is still alive. What it needs is help to be alive and well. And to be alive and well means we're all going to benefit, not just Native Americans, because we're not in the river of life, just in a canoe. We're still traveling side by side in the river of life, so we need to conduct ourselves that way. And we can't look at it as ancient history unless the sun don't rise in the east any longer. These decisions that were made and passed on and shared with your ancestors weren't just for 1613 and 1614. They were for us. They were understood by your people, for your people, as well as our people for our people. Side by side on the river of life, understanding. And so today, you can see some of the symbolism that was shared with the Great Law of Peace. And I talk about the arrows and the eagle as the settlers had Thanksgiving, turkey as their national bird. They don't teach you that much in school, but if you look hard enough and ask the right questions, that you'll find that in the archives that they called it their national bird until they heard the Great Law of Peace and changed it to the eagle. And in that eagle clasp, what's in his clasps, in his talons? 13 arrows. 13 arrows representing 13 council fires. Because also in the archives they used to call themselves the 13 councils, what was it? The 13 councils. Then they changed it to the colonies. That's what you guys were taught. Look in the archives and it talks about the 13 councils of fire, taken from the Great Law of Peace. And so to match up some of their symbolism, I guess somewhere overseas, the olive is representing peace. So in the other talon is the olive branch representing peace, so that they can have some of that identity too. This is some of the stuff that they don't teach in history, but we all should know, because it's not over, it's not ancient, it's still alive, we still live it, we still conduct our meetings this way. We still do Thanksgiving, we're still grateful, we're still alive, and we ain't going anywhere. Brings us to 1700, George Washington.
Got George Washington up there?
I got George Washington. George Washington in a bag. This is sometimes called the George Washington belt. It's sometimes called the Pickering belt, Colonel Pickering. And also it's called the Onondaga Treaty of 1794, which was signed on November 11th. And there's a book of it right there, Treaty of Onondaga, here it is. And so here again you have the 13 leaders of the fires and us in our house. The western door and the eastern door, and our forest is our house. And so George Washington commissioned this belt to be made to keep, he asked us for peace. George Washington did. In 1794, the United States, a newly formed government, was getting beat. Every battle that they got into, trying to take over Kentucky and Ohio Valley and all that area. And they knew if the Haudenosaunee and our allies joined forces with our western brothers, that he wouldn't, and his army wouldn't have a chance, because they weren't having a chance as it was. So he summoned us for peace to stay out of it. And we did. He promised us never to interfere with our land. It will always be ours. And the courts will always be open to us. If there was ever a complaint. Well, since 1794, we've been complaining. 1794. Not after, during. Right after this was signed, from then on, we've been complaining of encroachment. He said he has a few bad people of his peoples and he can't control them all. We understand. We have some too. And that's why you see in the Sullivan campaign goes to try to wipe us out. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that part of history. It's called the Sullivan-Clinton campaign. George Washington triggered it prior to this, thinking he would get rid of us by taking care of our food source, our livelihood and such. He forgot we grew up in the woods, we had good hiding spots. Couldn't get rid of us. Still couldn't get rid of us. It wasn't until, well, there's a lot, like I said, there's so much more history that's not being taught that has to be taught. Because in order for you to be at peace, you have to live at peace. And if you're not honoring what was given to you on the basis of survival in your infancy, and you disrespect it, such as we do our Mother Earth, then there's no way we're going to be at peace. So we got to understand where our teachings come from in order to know where we're going to go. We all want the same thing. We all want pure water. We all want peace and contentment as we walk about for our children, for our grandchildren, for the ones yet to be seen. And so we all have to work together at the teachings that are still alive and well. Great Law of Peace, the two-row wampum, and honoring the treaties that your government made with our people in order to survive as people. We're living today, still, side by side. We're living, traveling down the river of life together. And so we gotta work together to protect our mother. Done,